Good day, it's Ask Lee Wednesday. So, if you have any questions that you'd like me to answer on this particular slot, then leave your questions in the comments below to one of the Ask Lee videos and I'll include it in video format. Otherwise, if it's on any other video, I'm going to answer it in the comments. Alright. So, two questions again today. First one is from Alyssa Kira. What is your opinion on the view that Yahweh Allah is a demon jinn rather than all-powerful creator? Also, I'd like to hear what you think of Iblis as a jinn to be worked with. I'm going to answer the second, well, there's actually three questions then today. I want to answer the second question first because the first question's going to get a bit lengthy. So, Iblis, I haven't worked with Iblis myself to much degree. However, Iblis his name is said to originally been Azazil or Azazel. So, in that regard, let's put it this way: Iblis, from the point or perspective of being a jinn. The story basically goes that there's a variety of different stories. One was that he was cast out of heaven. The other one was he raised up from hell, all stuff. From my understanding, from my personal understanding, Iblis was sort of the leader of the jinn. He was taken into heaven in order to represent the jinn. So he stood beside God. And that is basically it. As I said, there's a variety of different stories about how he was cast out of heaven because he didn't want to bow to Adam, and he also there's a story that God wanted to create another race because the previous race was disobedient, and he wanted an obedient race, so he created humans. When it comes to the jinn were a race of beings that were created from fire, and that was before humans were created. If we consider jinn were created from fire, humans were then created from earth, but this was a race that was around before humans. And my own personal understanding is that Iblis stood beside God in order to represent the jinn race, and there were various divisions that happened within the jinn race. One continued to follow God and the other didn't. But as far as Azazil comes, Azazil is an element or a being or an angel of very much represents the element of fire. And you're going to find this again in different traditions. It changes, it differs. The best thing to do is actually work with the spirits themselves and find out for yourself which direction they take you in. Because, if you look in the Hebrew tradition, Azazel is the scapegoat. Whereas if you look in traditional witchcraft, some traditional witchcraft, not all traditional witchcraft. There are some factions of traditional witchcraft that focus quite a lot on the Grigori and the fallen angels. And in that case, Azazel is very much considered to be the smithy god. So, again, different interpretations, different ways to look at things. And I think this mostly comes from people's own personal understanding and own personal interaction with these spirits, and then it starts bleeding across into groups, areas, countries, traditions, whatever we want to look at. So yeah, very much. I think it comes down to very much, if you want to work with the spirit, then, take it slowly, obviously, but build that relationship again. And in this case with Iblis, what you might want to do is work with Azazil. They are considered to be the same spirit. Azazil being the the original name of Iblis. Alright, so the first part of the question about Yahweh being a demon or Djinn rather than all-powerful creator. Now, it's quite possible that Yahweh is a Djinn, because Yahweh had to ask his followers to take him out of the desert, and this is where the Djinn originate and they come from. So there is that interpretation, there is that possibility. What I'd like to do though is ask you a question. Why are you separating a spiritual being from this all-powerful creator figure? And the reason I ask this, because this comes down to very much a Christian worldview and Christian perspective, where God is this being that sits on a cloud in the heavens. And that kind of takes God as being this sentient entity, which then operates individually from other sentient entities, other gods and goddesses. And this is why he was a jealous God, and he didn't want other people to bow to other gods, only to him, because he was this sentient entity. It's an egregore. So although a lot of people call this sentient entity God, it probably has a different name, or it does have the name God, but it's not the God of the Hebrews. It's not the God of everything and nothing. Let me put it this way. If every single religion had its own creator God, we would therefore have different realities, different creations, but we don't. We all live in this same creation. We all see this same creation. So even though every religion may claim to have its own creator God, it doesn't mean that that is the creator God. There is one encompassing, all-enveloping everything and nothing, which is that all-powerful force. And it's not a separate entity. All of these separate entities, all of the different gods and goddesses, all of the different names of God in Hebrew, all of the different spirits which make up creation, they are all part of this all-encompassing force, the all-powerful creator. And I believe, and it kind of makes logical sense to me, and hopefully it makes logical sense to other people, that there is only one of those. Because if we had multiple creator gods, creator beings, which were creating multiple different creations and realities, we wouldn't all be existing in the same one. Sure, there are parallel dimensions, there are realities outside this particular organic reality which we are interacting with now, but that's on a different level. That's a different discussion altogether. You know, that's more of a case of different realities created out of different decisions and different choices that we make through our lives. You know, we reach a point in a crossroads. We have to make a decision on something, and we make a decision. So we go off in this direction, but that doesn't mean that another reality doesn't split off and, you know, take the other decision. But that's going into parallel dimensions and alternate realities. There are, you know, when we get into alternate realities as well, we have the three worlds. We have the 9 worlds of Yggdrasil. We have all of these mythologies and all of these worldviews which create alternate realities also. That can be a huge topic, absolutely massive topic. But what I'm trying to get at is we are interacting in this organic world, in this organic realm, this reality here. And in this reality here, we have all different religions, and they all keep fighting with each other and saying that our path is the right path, and our God is the right God, our God is the one that created the universe, if every single one of those had a creator God that created a reality, we would have all different realities, but we don't. Simple as that, really. That kind of makes logical sense to me. Hopefully it does to everybody else. So, going back to the question, even if Yahweh was Djinn, he still formed part of that creation. We all form part of the creation. And that creation is in constant flux. It's in constant motion. It's constantly being... Here we're going to get into time being real or not. We can speak about it being creation is constantly in motion, constantly developing, constantly creating. But that creates a timeline, which isn't real. So to try and put this into words in English. So we have everything exists at the same moment. So the whole of creation exists, whether we consider it to be past, present, or future. It all exists in the same moment. So the entire creation has been created. It exists. But every single person, every single spirit, every single demon, every single angel, every single god, every single goddess, every single spiritual element, every single rock, every single tree, every single chair, every single computer, everything forms part of that creation throughout. I can't even say time, because time's not real. Throughout the entire existence of creation. Okay, so it's all part of the creation, all part of that all-powerful creator aspect. It just all forms it. So don't try not to separate these things from being this all-powerful creator, because it really is. I feel it's almost like an attack on the Christian worldview, and I know, I get it, I really get it. People come from this Christian background and they have pain and trauma from that. And they want to fight back at it, they want to lash back at it, they want to attack it. And it's completely understandable. But in order to heal yourself from that, you need to, I'm not saying you specifically, Alyssa, is this Alyssa? Let me just check, got the name right, Alyssa. Not saying you specifically. Your question just reminded me of this. In order to heal, we've got to get away from that pain and that trauma. We've got to heal that trauma. So find a way to heal that trauma. If it's speaking to a therapist, if it's doing the work by yourself, if you can, that's fantastic. But we've got to try and heal that trauma in order to move forward. Otherwise, we're just tied into this worldview, this Christian worldview, because all we're doing is saying, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, and that's what the Christians do all the time. So we've got to get away from that Christian worldview. We've got to break away from it. In order to do that, we've got to heal the trauma. But I do feel, when this question comes up, I do feel it comes a lot from that trauma. We want to kind of take this name Yahweh and make it into something bad and evil, and go back to the Christians and go, no, you were wrong. Don't try and expand beyond that. Try and become better than that. Otherwise, all you're doing is continuing that Christian worldview. I'm going to carry on rambling if I continue. So I think you get my point. If you don't, if you want to discuss it further, please ask more questions. But yeah, that's kind of basically it. All right. So the other question for today came from Deborah. Hello, Deborah. What are the parasites that pose as a god? Okay. Now, these are lower energy entities. And in order for them to get more power, get more strength, they need to feed off fear and anxiety, because that's basically what they are. They are fears and anxieties. Now, in that regard, a lot of these lower entity beings are thought forms that we have created. And possibly not just humans, possibly also gods and goddesses. Gods and goddesses are not infallible. In many myths and legends, they are displayed as being quite human, in attitude. So they're not infallible. They also make mistakes. But the lower energy entities, these parasites, are very often thought forms that have been created by us, from fears, anxieties, depressions. These thought forms are created all the time. They are very much an externalization of our fears. And they externalize themselves and they carry on living because they start feeding on the energies. So if we were to consider the life cycle of a parasite, an astral parasite, somebody has a lot of fear. They generate a lot of energy from this fear. That energy then gets externalized as a thought form. That thought form then starts attacking the person, because that's how they feed. The more fear and anxiety they can create, the more food they can get. So they start attacking, creating more fear. They get more food. They become stronger and stronger. If they get to a point where they can disconnect from that energy parameter, then they can go off and they can start feeding on other people. So they will attach to somebody. They will create fear. They will create anxiety and depression in them, and they will feed off that negative energy. And they get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. So we have these entities which are creating on or feeding on this negative energy. Now, in order to get somebody to trust them, they have to be tricky. So what you may find is that somebody will do an invocation or an evocation, whichever terms you want to use, in order to speak to a god or a goddess. And depending on what happens during that ritual, depending on the skills, abilities of the person doing the ritual, the god or goddess may not hear. Or I've had it in one case, I know somebody who did an invocation to a spirit and asked for more power, or to be more powerful in life or something like that, and also said, and I will give my life to you in 10 years time. Taking the whole Hollywood thing into the ritual. And the spirit kind of said, well, I don't want that. That's rubbish, and the person just kept saying the same thing. You can have my life in 10 years. And eventually the spirit just gave up and said, I'm not even going to listen to this, and went off. The person didn't know. The person wasn't listening. And this is where the problem comes in. The person doesn't listen. Spirit pisses off. And then this astral parasite comes along, sees this happening and goes, ooh, food. And attaches. And through that attachment says, I am the spirit, the god, the goddess you are wanting to speak to. What do you desire? What are your 3 wishes? And the person believes this, and therefore continues to work with this astral parasite. And the astral parasite will bring things because it needs to create this trust. So through this whole process, it's creating this trust, posing as this god, and which, being a god is like a powerful thing, and therefore it can't be something bad. It is the thing you actually wanted to speak to and the thing you wanted to work with, so don't question it. Question everything, question the gods. So this thing poses as a god, which creates trust, and then starts bringing the person things which creates more trust and more love and more adherence to the spirit, the astral parasite. But then it starts doing other things which create fear, which create anxiety, which create depression. harm yourself, harm other people, steal this, take that, do things which are going to create fear and anxiety. And it feeds off that. But the person is very much inclined to do this, thinking that it is the God that is asking them to do it. And also, because they are getting things, they want to do whatever the spirit tells them. Got to be very careful here. They are very, very tricky. So anyway, long story short, an astral parasite is a lower energy entity which poses a God in order to create trust, so that you will work with that astral parasite, and it can start creating fear and anxiety in you to feed off it and get stronger. Alright, that's the simple answer anyway. Okay, so I think that's it for today. I'll see you next week in Ask Lee Wednesday, and remember to ask those questions in the comments below, because if I run out, then I've got to babble on about something or other. Okay, so keep asking the questions. Okay, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Cheers for now.